Hello and welcome. Today's video is going to be about upgrading your cx20 to the mini APM 3.1. It's an alternative to the APM 2.8, which I'd actually still suggest probably getting the APM 2.8 instead of this guy, because this guy has some issues. I think is one, if you can't solder, I probably wouldn't even bother getting this one, because you have to find the right power module as well. This one came with this style, not the XT60. All the cables here, you're gonna have to cut them, and if you can't solder, it's still alright, because you can just cut all these ends, strip the wires back and twist them. And to be honest, twisting the wires on are probably better than plugging it into these things here. And that would be another issue I have with this kit, is it comes with all the wires for every single plug. Also, the power module plugs in here, but it also comes with this guy here, and you can plug this in instead of using the power module. And I think I might show you guys that way during the build, because I usually always show you guys how to install it into a cx20, and that's what this video will be about. And I'm plugging that in backwards. It goes in that way, and then you'll be able to plug this right into the receiver like you were before. But the problem with the other wires, like I said, is you're gonna have to cut them, strip them back, and twist them. These things here, I'm not sure why they include them, because they're stupid. Like, even if you wanted to plug it in there, as if you could plug it in on the other side, even if you find the center of the pins like that, it still doesn't give it enough meat to do it. I wouldn't trust it like that. And even if you take that out, what'll end up happening is the pin will go farther one side, not farther the other side. So these things are actually pretty damn pointless. They're good for soldering for my test here. So they're handy for soldering at least. So if you can solder, you can add little ends like that. This way, for the compass, I can just plug in my wires directly into this type thing. That's how I would use them. Or I would solder them, again, if you can solder, I'd solder them like that, 1-to-1 type thing, so you can plug one side and one side on the other side. Then they're okay. Alright, so this one doesn't come with a compass built in. I'll show you guys how to check for that, because that's something you need to know. Some might come with a compass. Just gonna pause it and turn the light on this thing. Apparently I can't get the light to work, so hopefully it's not too dark. So this is, like I said, a good upgrade for a Robo quad or an FPV quad, because you'll get your return to home and stuff like that. So what you'll want to look for here is, I'm not sure if I'm gonna have to take a picture of this, but the compass should be right there. And then I might have to show a picture of this, but this JP1 here, you're going to have to scratch between the two pads here and get rid of the trace if you have the compass there. And then you'll be able to use the external compass. You can try using the internal compass, and that's some other issues with this guy here, is you can't use your cx20 compass, because there's no 3.3 volts handy if you can't solder. I'm sure if I looked hard enough, I could probably find one easily, if I can get this thing back on properly. Alright, so some differences between this is, I'll just go through the specs really quickly. So the APM 252, this guy here, and the APM 2.6, 2.8. So you can already see it's nice and small, so that's pretty cool actually. So the differences are, or the same things at least, is they all have the Omega 2560 chip, they all have the Omega 32U2 chip, they all use the same MPU 6000 accelerometer and gyro, the 6-axis, and they all use the same barometer, the MS5611. The things where it gets kind of sketchy is the regulator. The regulator in this guy is the RT9193, and that's rated for about 300 milliamp, I believe. and the marking code on that guy is usually DE equals 1AD. On the APM 2.8, 2.6, it's supposed to have the MIC 5219, and that's rated at about 500 milliamps, and the marking code should be LG33. This little jerk has the code MIC 5202, or actually, the code on this chip here is supposed to be LG33. This guy here has the code LE33. So I'm not sure if they tried getting sneaky or not, but if you look hard enough, you find a data code for it, and it's the MIC 5207, and it's actually rated at 180 milliamps, which is actually less than this guy. So it's actually a downgrade. So hardware wise, it's technically a downgrade. And then there's the data flash chip. So this guy here uses the Atmel 45DB161D, and so does this guy. And then this guy, you can find pictures using it, but this one they got really clonish, and they're using also an 8045DB161, but it ends with the letter E, and it says Adesto at the top. So I did some Googling around on that, and it's a clone big time, unless they have some kind of licensing or something through Atmel, which I kind of doubt they would, because even their PDF or their data sheet, they pretty much copied that word for word, or they did copy it word for word for the data chip, the data flash chip. It's still the same size. I believe like the Atmel in here, just because it says it's an Atmel, and same with this guy, doesn't really mean it's an Atmel. It could very well be the Adesto just scraped off and has the Atmel words on it. You never know with these guys. At least these guys left the real clone chip on it. But I don't think that would be much of an issue. So out of all these three things, the only differences would be really is the voltage regulator. It shouldn't be that much of an issue, because even if you add lights to your APM and stuff, that doesn't affect the 3.3 line. What affects it is the data flash chip, the compass, and the I believe the gyro, or the Admega 32. I'm not too sure. I'll have to look more into that. And the issue I found I don't like about this guy is the grounds. This guy here has access to 11 grounds. So that's just here and here. Not like you would really need all of them, but it's just handy to have 11 grounds and probably about 11 positives as well if you needed them. This guy here has access to 32 grounds. And again, this little, we'll call him, has 4 grounds. And you're going to have to, no matter what, cut one of your grounds and twist more, piggytail more grounds onto it. It's just really silly that they did that. These little headers here, I mean, I believe this board here is a 4-layer board. They could have easily just added headers directly on the board as well. These things are nice, it keeps it nice and clean, but in the end of it, it's not convenient. But it takes up really less real estate. And all 3 APMs are Mission Planner friendly and can run up to version 3.21. Alright, and then the last issue I would have with these guys here, or with this guy here, is I showed you guys how to unbrick this guy. It's pretty easy for both chips, for the 32 and for the Mega 2560. This guy here, you can add headers on the top, and you can unbrick this guy pretty easily, and I also have a video how to unbrick the 32U2 chip using the pins over here. This guy here, I have no idea yet. So unless somebody actually requests me looking into it, I'll look into it and figure it out. There are some pads floating around that there might be access points to the MOSI or the ISP chips or whatever, or the ISP line, I mean. If not, I'll trace it out for somebody if somebody ever bricks one, or I might just make an unbrick video separate. Hopefully it doesn't have to be a direct solder on the pins, because that kind of sucks. Not too many people can actually do stuff like that. And yeah, so that'd be a pain in the butt. The Omega 32 YouTube chip probably be easier than the 2560 chip, because you can access those usually through the channels. But anyways, alright, I think I covered everything. Just the weight, I guess, I'll do really quickly too. Alright, So the weight now is for the original APM 252 is, helps if I turn it on. Don't mind any green stuff you see, it's just Play-Doh. Alright, so this guy goes here like this. It's 2574 grams. APM 2.8 is 30 grams. And then this guy is 13.74 grams. Right, so it is an upgrade for the only fact that it's smaller than the other ones. Besides that, it's not really an upgrade. So if you're under the impression that smaller is better and it's an upgrade, I can safely tell my imaginary girlfriend that in fact I'm an upgrade. So anyways, I'll continue on to building the quad. Alright, so I'm just going to show you the final look of this mess I have here. I'm not too sure if I'd actually suggest this APM for the cx20. There's a lot of issues, for me at least, is you have to cut all these cable ends or whatever like that. If you can solder and you don't mind keeping this APM in your cx20, then by all means it'd be good because you can just cut the wires to length. I wanted to save all my wires. In the video I do solder, but it's geared towards both users, the ones that can solder and they can't solder. If you're upgrading from a FPV quad like a cc20 or something in your smaller quads, this is definitely a good APM for it because you can use follow me mode and return to home and stuff like that. Not so much you'd really want to use it on an FPV, but say if you lose orientation, you can just easily flip it and have your quad come right back to you. So that's kind of handy. Besides that, I guess that's enough. I just want to say, like, this is a more realistic video, so just treat it more as a learn with me video than a proper step-by-step that I usually do. I might later in life make a proper step-by-step for this guy. This one went an hour because I like to babble like I'm doing right now, and I should just actually stop talking and just get into the video. Alright, so the first thing we're going to get out of the way is you should hook it up the USB to the computer just to confirm it works. If it doesn't work, send it back for a refund. That's a given right away. Besides that, check to see if you have the compass like I showed you at the start of the video. If you have the built-in compass and you're using this for the cx20 and you don't have the Neo, you can actually use this GPS that came with the cx20 and then use the compass built in. You can no longer use this compass here because there's no 3.3 volt line for the I2C. I did find 3 point something volts in there somewhere, but it involves soldering, so I'm just gonna keep this towards that. You can't solder and you gotta twist. Or if anybody ever really wants to see how this thing can work, I can look into it, but I'm not gonna bother. So for the compass, find the wires, or I mean for the GPS and compass, we'll do that out of the quad because it's just simpler. So look for a wire that has black, red, and then 4 other wires. That only has 4. This guy here. Right, so the big issue now is if you can't solder. I'm actually gonna solder anyways because I'm getting kind of tired of ruining all my stuff just for videos. So I would suggest just cutting the wires if you can't solder, skin it back with a lighter or whatever you have, and then just twist the wires together. Really twisting the wires on can be actually better than the connectors anyways, as long as you do it properly and then you either heat shrink it or tape it up after. If you can solder, then you can solder it, but then there's other ways of doing it without having to ruin it. I have a bunch of these guys here as well, if I can find the right ones. These kind of guys here with 2 ends. These are actually pretty handy, but they're built really bad as well. That would be another option, so you don't have to start cutting your wires, because your ESCs and stuff like that come with plugs like this, so you can just plug one end into there and then one into the ESC, and then you don't have to solder. I'd actually suggest folding this guy up and taping it up so it's smaller, like that. But that's up to you guys. Alright, so I'm going to get into it. So the black and red for the GPS. I'll work with the original cx20 GPS first. And I've already done the soldering, so you're going to have to cut the end on it or do whatever. Get one of these guys here like this. And the way this guy would get plugged in for color wise is the red one's there, then black, and then your left, whoops, I screwed that up. Like that. I would do a better job like that too. But anyways. And then your last two is your RX and your TX. So the yellow one gets hooked up to, no, I'm wrong. It's green. Green and white down here. So the white one gets hooked up to the blue. And then the green one gets hooked up to the yellow. Like that. So if you're going to twist them on, just twist the black to the black, the yellow to the green wire, and the blue to the green. I mean the blue to the white, and then the red to the white. So on this guy here too, you're going to have to cut the cable. That kind of sucks. And then you're going to either have to twist the wires on the same way as the other GPS or solder. Again, I'll be soldering mine. Alright, so I cut the wires off. This is from my other video actually, where I actually had to cut it, so I don't have to ruin another GPS for a video. So what I'll just do here is, with these pins here, just break off 4 of them. Usually if you clamp it so it's on all 4 of them, you won't get that much warp when you're heating up these guys. It doesn't really matter what order you put these in, because you're going to be plugging in the pins separately anyways. So as long as they don't touch each other, all should be well. Alright, heat shrink is a lot better than electrical tape. Helps if you remember which order you put them into. But anyways, I went black, yellow, brown, red. I hope. Right, so for this guy now goes black. Oh, I did get some warpage up there. This is what sucks about these pins if they're not used properly. And so the green down here gets hooked up to your yellow wire. And I should just suggest too that even if you get it wrong with the RX and the TX, it's fine. What you're going to want to do is just plug into the mission planner. And so if you plug it in the mission planner just with the GPS hooked up right now, what you should get is this. So if you get no GPS, that usually means all you have to do is switch these 2 cables around, and then you're going to get no fix. And then just leave it for a while and you should eventually get your GPS fix, or 3D fix at least. It's sometimes hard in the house. And then with the white and blue for your compass. So that would be the yellow and the blue wire here, and the blue one gets hooked up to the white. And the blue one on this guy gets hooked up to yellow. Alright, and again, you can hook this up to Mission Planner and you should get no errors with your compass. So you can first try booting up Mission Planner just with the GPS. Your Mission Planner should be giving you like barometer, or I mean compass errors. No compass, blah blah blah. And then just reboot your APM or turn off your APM or unplug the USB and then plug in these two wires here. And then if the compass error goes away, that means you have it hooked up right. If not, just simply swap these two wires around and your compass should start working. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing. So now we got the compass out of the way, and that's the one I'm going to be using. So we're going to jump into the receiver part of it now. So here's the cx20 receiver. And this cable here for now, you can unplug it. That's why it's actually not a bad idea doing the twist. If you can solder, I would actually twist the wires together, solder them, and heat shrink them. And then this GPS here, or whatever GPS you have, is just for this guy only. They're only about 13 bucks, these guys anyway, so it would be handy just to have one just for this anyways. But I don't, so that's why I did it this way, just more convenient for me. Alright, so I'm going to put that to the side, and I'm going to work on the channels now. And that would be on the APM here where it says channels right on this side. The ground, 5 volts, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I believe it's this guy here, the black and red cable. And before I plug this in, well, I'll plug it in now. We're only going to be using the first 4. Unless you're going to be using Mission Planner to control your gimbal and stuff, I just suggest taking them all out. So I'm going to be using 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to be using the last 2. If you're going to be using PPM on this, the other option you have too is you're going to need the first one. So I'm going to jump around here a little bit, so sorry about that. So you're going to need this guy here, and then with the blue and the green for channel 2 and 3, what you're going to want to do is cut the ends and just twist the ends together. And that'll put the Omega 32 into PPM mode. There's also a jumper apparently you can solder somewhere in there to keep it cleaner. That's up to you guys. I'm just going to show you the easy way is just twisting these two wires together, and then you're done. And then you can remove all of these wires here and just leave your positive and black wire there. But anyways, I'm going to be using the cx20 one. So back to this again, and I was kind of wrong, so I'm going to use channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, and channel 5. And then we don't need 6, 7, and 8. So I'm just going to remove those 3 right now to get them out of the way. Just find a pin or something. These things can break kind of easy sometimes, so just be careful, because you're going to want to reuse it, just in case you want to end up using the gimbals later on in life. You can always just tape these wires up too instead of removing them, but it might just make things simpler. Okay, so I moved these 3 wires here. Alright. So the way this guy goes now is the first white one here for channel 1 goes in the APM under A. And then the black and the red wire, positive in the middle rail, right there, and then ground on the bottom. The next wire is channel 2, and channel 2 is your E. Channel 3 is T. And channel 4 is R. Helps if I be plugging these guys in properly. And then channel 5 is your -1, and this wire here controls your return to home and stuff like that. So that's the way that would go. And then I think we're pretty much done with this now, so I can unplug this guy. And then this just will be able to plug into the APM after we're ready. I'm just going to show you guys one more thing really quick here with this before I jump into the cx20. This is optional, but I suggest doing it. So open up your case. So here's your MPU 6000. And what you're going to want to do is find a marker and then just take note where the chip is. So you really didn't have to take off the lid, but I just wanted to show you where this chip was. Then put this back here like that. And then just put a dot right there. And this is going to come in handy for finding center after. So then put this foam back over the barometer, which is right there. If you were wondering, this guy right there. And then put the shell back together. Alright, the one more thing I'm going to get out of the way before I actually jump back into the quad, so I kind of lied like usual, is the motors. So here you'll have labeled M somewhere on here, right here, these guys here. And then for this guy, I would suggest removing everything except the first 4, because you only have 4 motors anyways. Unless you're running my mod with the auto landing gear, then you might want to leave your channel 8, but you might want to leave it on the A's as well. And then I would also leave the ground wire. You don't need the positive, so remove all these guys here. So you're going to want to remove channel 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I'll just do that quickly here. Maybe fast forward it again. Alright, so the only wires left here now should be your black and 4 wires for your motors. Hopefully I got that right and I didn't do it backwards, because that would suck. Alright. So that's the way this guy would go on. So we're going to jump into the quad part now and add the 4 motors. And we only really have the 1 ground for the 4 motors, but whatever. And welcome to the mess. Alright, so find center of your board. And I have another video showing that. What I do just quickly is just take a piece of string, go around all the motors. Right, so the center hole here. Remember that dot we made on the APM? You're going to want to line that up with the center hole there, looking straight down with that dot, and that's where the APM would sit. I also made a little mark here so it's easier, and to get it straight you can line it up with this guy here. So it goes like that. And might be just handier because most people would think it would go over here somewhere like this, and that would be totally wrong. It's also pretty off on the robo and stuff like that as well. So I'm not sure why they offset the gyro so far off, but it's only really off this much from center anyways. So it should make a really huge difference anyways. But this just gives you an idea on how much room you actually have to play with it. Right, so now it's just plugging in the motors. After you find center, we're going to start working with the ESCs. Now, with your original compass, if you're not using it anymore and you remove this guy here, I would suggest reusing this now, or you're just going to have to twist all your wires together. It's up to you, or just plug it in without it. So on all the ESCs here, so the way it goes here is motor 1, 2, 3, and 4 for at least this quad for the cx20. And the APM. Remove all the ground wires out of each ESC. You're not going to be using the red, and it's not connected anyways, so it's fine. Alright, so this is where it might get a little bit messy. With this guy here, I broke one of my plugs here, but plug all the grounds into this guy here. Yeah, and this guy won't stay in, obviously. You don't have to do this, but there's not many grounds on this unit. This cable's just wrecked. Might not reach either. That might be another issue. Or see if this is going to work or not. If not, I just wasted my time and your time. So I'm going to pull this wires back. Oops. Somehow it got knotted up in there. That's okay. Yeah, this might not actually work. Let me see. Oh boy. No. Alright, so my idea here was to plug all these wires into, so dark, into the bottom rail here. So it looks like we can't get all of them. This guy here is just too short. So I guess we'll have to do that guy on its own. And so we'll move him. We can plug this guy into there maybe. Not sure if this is still going to be long enough. I think just twisting the wires might have been a lot faster. Alright, so it can go about up to there. And we're going to put the receiver, we'll see right here. So we're going to plug this in on the very bottom. And that'll be our ground. Again, you don't really need the ground. A lot of people say you don't need them for the ESCs because they're already plugged into the main ground anyways. But the only thing that's given its positive is to the APM. So this is totally optional. It's a little messy, so try with it or without it first if you want. And then this last ground here, we might just have to actually plug this guy up with this guy here like that. That'll be up to you guys. Oh, this is getting so confusing. Alright, back to the motor layout now, if we can do it. So motor 1 is here, and I made myself one of these. So I just took the two pieces and soldered them together. You'd just be twisting them. Now this is part's important. Make sure when you push it in, it stays in place. If not, you're going to have to fix the white. So this guy gets plugged there. And then this is motor 1, is your white one here. Like that. Number 2 is here. Can we plug it there? That doesn't really matter what side we plug it in. Number 2 there. And then the green. Maybe we'll try it for now. That. And then number 1, 2, 3 is over here. This guy. So this is the one I had issues with. So if you can tell, this guy doesn't even want to plug into it. So just make sure it has a really good connection if you're doing it this way. Otherwise you're going to have to fix it. And that's why I kind of suggest sometimes twisting the wires might actually be the better option in this case. You'd have really good connections. Especially if you twisted and soldered. Be way better than these plugs. So these sometimes you can push right here to fix it. That cable just looks bad. Something's wrong with it. Try that again. No, there you go. Okay, and then the next wire would be your blue for motor 3. And then the motor 4 is over on this guy here. Very limited with where these wires are going to be able to go after. And then yellow. You can have lots of cables left over too if you're going to be doing the soldering. So I'd really suggest just using your extra ends. So that's a mess. Definitely. So I'm going to tape that up. I think personally if I was actually going to keep this, I would do the twisting and just cut all my ends. Or I would just find the end here and I would just break off just one and then solder these headers right there. Just right on the ESCs themselves. This way I can just plug it right into them. There's this wire here we're going to need after. I really don't like this. Alright, so I'm just going to unplug the APM for now. And we still have this one ground wire to deal with after as well. These two here have to be twisted together. So for now I'll just do that. Keep them out of the way. I'm just going to jump back in this oddly. Because we had removed all these extra wires, we have all these ends here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to remove the red and white wire from all these one by one and just add them to just a single end here just to make it a little bit cleaner. So I'll just fast forward that. Just thought I would show that. Alright, so me trying to save my wires is starting to become a real pain in the butt, where this guy here is not even fitting on properly anymore either. So I'm going to have issues with that after. The only thing that's really holding this guy is the one beside it. I really think it would have been quicker just to unsolder these wires and just add this style on. This way I could have just plugged it right into the other wires directly, or came up with another way. So I do apologize for my setup here, but in principle it's the same thing from twisting. Just, I really think twisting would be so much faster. I keep bringing up twisting. I think I might have should have went that way. That even made sense what I just said. Alright, so I did all that just so I could tape them better. So yeah, who knows if one of my solder joints broke. Hope not. Alright. Okay, so I got that out of the way. The next thing we're going to have to work on is the power module now. So I'm going to bring back up that other cable I wasn't going to use before. Where is it? This guy here goes into the power module plug. The only wires you're going to need here is red and black and red. One black and one red. But you can leave the two blacks if you want to use the black for something else, one of the grounds, and then one positive. So again, I would suggest moving all these wires here out of this guy. So where this red wire is going to have to be hooked up now is you're left with one cable on your board, and that's this guy here with the black, red, and white, which the white is sometimes connected and sometimes not, but that's a whole different story. So you're going to have to connect this red wire with this guy here. Now you can use on the APM here on, what is it? On the channel outputs, it has 5 volts and ground. You can actually plug that into the APM here and then have this guy plugged into the APM like you would before. The only problem with that is it back feeds into the motherboard, and then motors twitch and it keeps browning out the APM. So you basically have no choice to do it this way, or to get it sound a little bit confusing, if you do it the other way with this cable here with the positive and negative that plugs into your channels, what you can do is use this still, but when you use your USB plug, you're going to have to do my USB cable mod where you just remove the power cable out of it. Then you should be able to safely use USB plus the battery, but this is just another pain in the butt way you're going to have to do it. So this guy here plugs into the like that, and then you're going to want to make sure this, at least this one, most out of all of them have to have a really super good connection, because you don't want your APM resetting for no reason. And then like always, you're just going to have to twist the wires together. I got this guy already made here with 3, so I'm just going to plug this guy here like that, plug the red one there, and the ground on the ground like that, and this is going to give the APM power. Tape this guy up. Okay, so I can unplug this now. That's fine. Alright, so we're almost done with this. It's really messy. It looks like it's overwhelming to a point because of the way I did it and the way I'm showing it. You're going to run into problems. Like one of the problems I already have is I showed you guys how to center your APM. I marked it, did all that fancy stuff, and then I found out that this is such a mess. Found out this cable here for the USB that plugs here. I think I got it plugged in right. Yeah. This capacitor is in the way, so I can't get my APM center. So it's pretty center. It's off about this much, and it would still be a lot better than say up to here or whatever. But you're gonna have to put it here like that, I guess. I have no choice. Now I guess the last two things would be the gimbal. So I have the compass and stuff plugged in already again too, right here. And the way the compass and the GPS goes on the cx20 is here, and you would want to route the wires through this hole here. But I'm just going to leave it off to the side for now until I'm finished. I'll take pictures of it after I'm done everything. And then we're still left with, oh no, I got that one done. Okay, good. Alright, what else is there? I think that's about it. It's just the two gimbal wires. So put your receiver, I guess, over here somehow. The way this guy goes is the red and the, well, the solid one, but the white one by itself will plug here, like that. And you got the white and red one plugs into number 2. So I said like that, and that was kind of silly. So the white one by itself gets plugged into -2, and the white with the red gets plugged into -3. You should have nothing plugged into -B now. I say minus, but they all have the dash there, so it's dash B. But in all my videos, I always say -B. Alright, then the 3 ground right here. You might have some extra wires like this too that you could use instead. I just used the 4 one. It's kind of pointless. And that gets plugged right at the bottom on the receiver again. There's your ground wires for all your ESCs, which you kind of need but you don't need because it's grounded here anyways and it goes straight to the board. And then this guy here gets plugged back into the channels. Everything's oriented just wrong on this board. So this guy gets plugged here. Like I said, you got to make sure you push them in right all the way. The lights. And that's going to be back to me having to draw a picture because the lights can be a pain in the butt. They can be a little bit confusing. And I've explained the lights in a bunch of other separate videos. So you're left with one cable here that plugs into the A0 all the way up to A11. What I suggest doing here is separating just the 3 wires here you're going to use for the lights. And that would be A0, A1, A2, A3, A4. So you're going to use A5 for the alarm light, and that's usually the orange one. The green one there is for your GPS. So that'd be the white wire. That's A5 or A6. And then A7 is this green guy, and that's for your arming light. So just count 4 or 5. No, 4. I can't count today. Yeah, so just hold your connector this way and remove the first 5 wires. And you want to take these 5 wires out of this harness and then take out the last 4. So you're only going to be left with these 3. And then that would get connected to your, I will have to draw a picture. I'll have to take a picture and show you how to connect these. Because my lights are already modded. What I did in earlier videos was, well, it's pretty horrible looking now, but I flipped the LEDs. I picked them up and I flipped them around. This way I can get all 3 lights. When you do the mod, if you're not going to flip the LED on just the orange and red one, you're going to have to, you lose the light. The orange and the red become one, and you're only going to get green and red. But the orange one's not really necessary because the quad on the bottom blinks orange anyways when the battery's almost dead, so you should be fine. And then, yeah, so these 3 here would be for my A5, A6, A7 for the lights. And then I got 2 here for ground. Again, you're going to have to twist your 2 grounds around. You might have 3 grounds, so you're going to have to twist your 3 grounds around. and then connect it to one ground somewhere. So the only cable you should be left here is the cable for telemetry, and that's just straightforward. Again, it's just your red and black, and then your TX and your RX. Even if you get these two guys backwards, it's fine, but on your receiver for your telemetry, you're going to have to cut the wires as well and just directly add these two to it. The place this goes is, I believe, on the bottom right there. And that's where you plug this in for telemetry. Alright, so I think I'll show a couple of mission planner settings. I'll come back in after with what I can do best to make this thing look the cleanest. And I think that's about it for this video. So I kind of apologize for it being really messy. I tried to make this as clear as possible, but I don't think it came across that way. I'm not sure yet until I rewatch the whole video. Or just treat this video more as do I really want to get this APM because it seems like a lot of trouble. But when it really comes down to it, if you take your time, put each one wire at a time, skin them back, twist them together, it's really not that complicated. I made it more complicated because I didn't want to wreck my wires for some reason, so I had to make messes like this instead, where if I didn't have a problem cutting the wires, I would have just cut all the ground wires, attached all the grounds together and whatever. Same with these white guys here. I don't know how safe that'll be. But anyways, like I said, I'm gonna put this thing back together. I'll take a snapshot or show you guys a video of it inside as clean as possible. Should be alright. Alright, so that's as clean as I can get this quad to look. It's not that bad. I have a cluster of wires here though. The lid shut's perfect though. And I still don't have my compass on properly yet, but so it's all good. It's probably pretty close to be ready to be taken outside. There's one thing I have to show you guys quickly here is the power module here. I'm still having issues, so you guys might actually have to run with the modded USB cable with no power cable on it. I'll just quickly show you what happens, and if this happens to you, don't use it. So if you plug in your USB, for you it'd be on the bottom of the cx20 probably or whatever, but I'll just show you on the side here. So this is what will happen when you plug in the USB with this still connected. It's chirping like that. So what's actually happening right now, it's backfeeding. Sometimes I can actually connect the mission planner, but usually I can't. So I'm just going to unplug it. If it does it, unplug it right away. So what's happening is it's backfeeding through the power module, even through that B cable, back into the board. So if you have a diode, you could throw a diode on it to stop that from happening. Or just do the easiest thing and just remove the red wire out of your USB cable. This way, when you plug in the USB cable in the bottom of the cx20, nothing will happen until you plug in the battery. Besides that, that's my only fix right now. I think why mine is doing it is because there's a diode in here. I had to fix it. I had to jump over the diode because it was already blown. So I'm not sure if I blew it somehow or if it actually came blown. But there was a diode broken in here and I had to jump it. Otherwise, this power module here wasn't powering up the APM. So if any of you guys run into the issue where you plug in your power module, because I even went through the trouble of adding the two ends to the power module and plugging it right in, and this guy wouldn't even power this. That diode, like I said, was broken, so I had to jump it, and that could be why it's now backfeeding back into it. So you guys should be fine. So try the USB cable. If it chirps, just unplug it, and then you're gonna have no choice to do the modded cable. All right? I have a video about that. It's really simple. All right, I'll get into some mission planner settings, and that's about it. Alright, I'm going to show you guys quickly how to calibrate the ESCs with the mini APM as well. Make sure you calibrated your remote and mission planner, the radio calibration, and also set arming check to disable. The only power this APM should have is USB power, so make sure you unplug the cable here, or if you're using ESC power or anything else, just make sure you remove it from the receiver. The only power this guy should have is from USB. So plug in your USB cable, make sure the light's on the receiver, turn on your remote. You might have to wait till these lights go solid. Once they start blinking, then arm it. Once it's armed, go full throttle. Plug in your battery. Those two beeps, then push down. After that, it should be good to go. And you can test it. And then that's how you calibrate it. Then just unplug it and reboot it. The reason why you heard a separate beep on mine is because this is one is using BL Heli on this ESC, so that's why it sounds kind of different. So just make sure you hear just the two beeps. If it's constantly beeping at you or whatever, don't put the throttle down. I have more in-depth videos about that too, so just ask me in the comments. Plug in your quad into Mission Planner. I'll add a link to Mission Planner in the description in case you don't have it. On this here, find your APM and then push connect. I'm in a virtual machine, so it might be a little sluggish. Alright, so you can attempt to do the wizard or you can just do one by one. So the first thing to do is go to initial setup and we'll start with the flight modes. So here are the flight modes here. So if you turn on your remote, you should be able to move these dip switches. So 0 and 2 is RTL. 1, 2 is Alt Hold. 1, 1 is Stabilize in Simple Mode. So just put a check mark in there. And 0, 1 is Loiter. If I can find it, this is far away from me. So here's the settings you should have is RTL, Alt Hold, Stabilize, Stabilize, Stabilize in Simple Mode, and then Loiter. Then push Save Modes. Next, do a radio calibration. So here you just click on Calibrate Radio, go through all the motions, make sure you leave the throttle in the center, or at the bottom when you're done. And the dip switch is here. And then make sure that's on the bottom and click when done. Alright, under compass, click on this guy here, external compass. It should have all the settings for you, so you should have 2 check marks here, and it should say rotation roll 180 if you put the Neo GPS the same way I did. After you're done that, click on live calibration. Also suggest if you've never done a calibration before, check out the YouTube example and click on this guy. So what should happen here is you should have these little dots here. If you don't have any dots at all, there's something wrong with your cables, and then you can just move your cx20 around to get all the dots. I suggest strongly to tape your USB cable to one of your legs on your cx20 so it doesn't fall out during the process. Alright, next. Under fail safes, you can set radio to always, I can't read from here, enable RTL
But if you're doing a maiden flight, sometimes I suggest to just maybe put enable always land instead. This way if something's wrong with your compass, it just doesn't take off somewhere weird on you. That's up to you. And then same with the battery. If you're running with power module, you can enable that as well. Okay, and then go to config and tuning. Go to planner, and then set here where it says layout, set it to advanced. Now you should have more options. And you go back to config and tuning. So under full parameter list, where it says arming check, set arming check to 0. Then use the scroll bar here and go down to the M's. Mott spin armed. Yours might actually say Mott spin armed 70. Set it to 0. This way when you arm the quad, the blades aren't turning on you. And also a little bit about the arming check disable. That just helps you calibrate the ESCs, and also if you're trying to arm the quad without a GPS signal. It's kind of a good thing to have in place, having it set at the defaults. But if you're trying to arm it on a rainy day or something, it just won't arm because you shouldn't be flying it in the rain. And then go to standard params. And then scroll down to, and I always forget the name of this, so I'm just going to scroll down until I see it. To RTL altitude. I set mine to 424, the default is 1500, so when you hit the RTL, the return to home switch on your cx20 remote, it's going to go 50 feet up in the air before it returns to the home. This way I set the 424 so it only goes 13 feet. So this way you can take better control of it if you're new to it. After that you can set it back to 1500 if you want. It's up to you. After you're done with that, write your parameters. Back in full parameter list, I'd also suggest before you do any settings actually, just click on save to file and then save your parameters. This way if you do mess up, you can just revert back. Okay guys, that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching. I apologize it went really long. And if you have any problems at all, just hit me up in the comments. I'm usually willing to help. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.